I know a lot of people are gonna complain, oh Josh, it needs to be lingonberry. You know what? Look, if you can't find lingonberries, do me a favor and don't let those you-know-what berries tell you that you can't use cranberry.
Today we're going to be making Joshua's but better Swedish meatballs, and we're going to see how much better they actually are from Ikea. Well, Joshua normally does do a good job, so I'm sure these are going to be very good. And guys, if you would actually like to make this recipe at home while you're watching this video as well, get all the ingredients, all the mise en place ready, organize yourself, and well, follow us along as we make this today. Also, if you do happen to enjoy this recipe, or the video at least, give it a like, don't forget to give it a share, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future content. Now, let's get started.
Today we're making Ikea's coveted Swedish meatballs. I can't believe I'm saying that. Why does this exist? It's just one of those weird things that we all just accept and don't think, wait a minute, why is this furniture store selling me meatballs like nobody's business? It just shouldn't be our business. Whose business is this, really? I'm kind of confused. What kind of a business is this? What? Who are you?
It is funny, Ikea meatballs are pretty popular, and especially over here in Europe, people tend to go to Ikea all the time. I mean, even during the weekdays, Ikea can be busy.
The point is, these meatballs have quite the clout. And you know, Ikea's balls and my balls, I think, need to come together and really duke it out. And so that's what we're going to do. There's nothing else to say after that. So let's make this, shall we?
Why is it always packed? Can we just have one day where Ikea is just here? You know, you don't have to come to Ikea. You don't have to. You could just stay at home, like you're supposed to.
That's true. You can actually get Ikea to deliver if you just buy online, but then, you know, you can't go to the food court and get some Ikea famous Swedish meatballs. And for those of you who have never been to Ikea, when you enter, it is a maze. Good marketing, because then, you know, you want to buy things.
Okay, so we're back from Ikea. We got a to-go tin. It's all still warm because it's right across, well, not right across the street, but it's nearby us. You ever heard a meatball make this noise? Let me answer that for you.
No.
There's a fish aroma coming from this. Not sure how that's possible, but hey, anything's possible on But Better.
They smell fishy. If anybody is watching, if you know the secret recipe to Ikea's meatballs, then please let us know down below. Do they add anchovies? Do they add fish sauce to it?
Well, I have jam on my fork, so let's try that first. I mean, it's not bad, it's just not good. Bitter, imbalanced. It's just straight sugar, but the lingonberries taste kind of good. Mashed potatoes first.
Trash.
I've had instant mashed potatoes that are better than this. Meatballs. Now, I do like these, so hopefully they are good today. This is not good. These are coveted because they come from a furniture store, okay? That's what we're judging right now. Can we make them better? My God, I sure hope so.
I'm excited to see how much Joshua has actually improved the recipe. The very first reaction video that we reviewed was Joshua making a paella, and in that video I was a little hard on Joshua, and it's not personal, I like Joshua, but if you guys haven't seen that video, then be sure to check it out after seeing this one.
All right, folks, we have a couple basic components here. The meatballs and their coveted gravy, our mashed taters, broccoli, but you know, actually exciting, and a beautiful lingonberry, or well, in this case, cranberry jam. I know a lot of people are gonna complain, oh Josh, it needs to be lingonberry. You know what? Look, if you can't find lingonberries, do me a favor and don't let those you-know-what berries tell you that you can't use cranberries. Are they the same? No, but they taste close and they contribute the same purpose to the dish. Now that I've made a few people angry, let's start with that.
Today we had a bit of an issue trying to get cranberries just to make this, let alone trying to get lingonberries. They're not the same. Today we're going to be using dried cranberries because I could not get frozen, I could not get fresh, and dried were the only option.
In a medium-sized sauce pot, add 12 ounces or 350 grams of lingonberries or cranberries. They can be fresh or frozen, both will work. Then add 1 1/4 cup or 250 grams of granulated white sugar, half a cup or 120 milliliters of orange juice, half a cup or 120 milliliters of water, 2 tablespoons or 30 milliliters of lemon juice, and 3 large strips of orange zest. Peel it off. There's no need to grate it. Give that a stir and set the temp to medium-high.
Now it's our turn. I'm going to add them to the pot first. I'm going to then add some cranberry juice because, you know, I can get dried cranberries and get cranberry juice, but I can't get fresh or frozen. After a few minutes of boiling the you-know-what out of the cranberries, and you will notice the dried cranberries will start to rehydrate. They'll start to drink a lot of the juice. I'm going to then add the sugar, the orange juice, the water, the lemon juice as well. But when you add the lemon juice, a better idea to have like a little sieve underneath. When using any orange zest, it's a good idea to be careful not to add any of the pith or the white part. that white bit is very bitter. So get a sharp knife and cut off as much as you can.
Let that come to a boil, then reduce it to low and simmer for 20 minutes. Stirring and mashing occasionally until it's thickened into a light syrup and all the berries have burst open. Then just remove the orange zest or leave it in, it's up to you. Then toss it in a food processor or blender and blend until completely smooth. Then finally pass it through a fine mesh strainer and cool completely to room temperature. I mean, just look at that beautifully silky and smooth jam that I want in and around my mouth.
Today I'm going to be using a hand blender. You need to be careful if you do, it can be a little messy. The thing is with the dried cranberries is that they can have a bit of a tough skin because they were dried, so you may have to add a little more liquid to blend them. I'm going to pass them through a sieve like Joshua did. And here you have a few options. You don't have to make this a perfect puree where it has no seeds, no skin, nothing whatsoever. If you want to make this more of a rustic like cranberry sauce, you can leave it chunky, it's not an issue.
Okay, next is our mashed potatoes. Real easy. Get yourself 3 large russet potatoes or more depending on how many you want. Peel them, cut them into chunks. God, that's a terrible word for anything you're gonna eat. Chunked. Anyway, toss in a pot and fill with water. Place it over medium-high heat until it comes to a boil and let that cook until fork tender. Then press them through a potato ricer. Link in bio for dat.
Now Joshua's using about 3 large potatoes. This will be about a kilo depending on the size of the potatoes that you're going to be using. Now if you can't get russet potatoes, you can use Yukon Gold, Mary Pipers, King Edwards, or some of the Spanish varieties that we have here as well. But one important thing when peeling the potatoes is very important not to leave any dark spots on the potatoes. And actually Joshua and I are using the same knife today. Make sure to cut the pieces more or less equal sizes, that way they'll cook at the same time. We'll bring them up to a boil, and once they come up to a boil, it's a good idea to put some salt in this. Take a paring knife and check the potatoes. Normally you take out the largest potato and check it to see if it goes through easily. If it does, they're ready. If you're going to be making a kilo or more of mash, it is a good idea to put these through a ricer. If you're going to be making a little less, it's not that important.
Separately, in a small saucepan, add 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter and 1 cup of whole milk. Heat that over medium heat just until hot and the butter is melted. Pour 3/4 of that over your rice titers, stir that together, and if it's still pretty thick, feel free to add the rest of the liquid. Then just season that bad boy to taste with salt and pepper, stir till completely smooth, and of course add extra butter if you're feeling a little extra naughty.
Naughty little potato man wants his sweet cream butter.
Now, just keep that bad boy warm and to the side.
Now I have a few videos on my channel, a few old ones, on how to make the perfect mashed potatoes the way that I was taught in France, the pot au couche method, and I'll leave them in the link down below. After boiling your potatoes, you need to strain them and let them sit for a few minutes to allow the residual moisture from the potatoes to evaporate. This is very important. You don't want water in the potatoes. And it's also a good idea to take the pot that you were originally boiling the potatoes in, clean it out because it's still hot, it still has the residual heat. And with the cream, I never mix the butter and the cream. I always separate them. Do as Joshua was doing, taste it for salt and pepper, and you're done. After you finish cooking the mash, take some film and put that film directly on top of the mash without leaving any air pockets. And what this will do is it will help keep it warm, and it will help prevent the mashed potatoes from forming a skin.
Next, let's talk broccoli. Please, there's a time and a place for steaming and boiling, and plain broccoli is simply not one of them. Instead, what I'd recommend is breaking your broccoli down into florets. I like my florets tall, so I leave quite a bit of stem on there. Then coat a medium-sized pan with enough oil to coat the bottom. Then heat that over medium-high heat, and once that's ripping hot, add in your broccoli, cut sides down, season that to taste with salt, and let that sear for 2 to 3 minutes per side until you get a beautiful caramelization and a nice crust on most edges. Remember, we don't want this mush. We want it with a little bit of snap. Once that's done, hit it with some fresh lemon juice to taste, and additional salt if needed, and that's your broccoli.
We're gonna do the exact same as Joshua was doing for the broccoli. Personally, I would blanch these first and then sear them at the very last minute before serving, because what can happen is when you make garnish ahead of time, like with broccoli, cauliflower, or any of these vegetables, is that after about 10-15 minutes, they start to really like wilt and they don't look as fresh as they do as soon as they come out of the pan.
Now for our most important contender, the meatballs. So start with 1 pound or 450 grams of ground beef. It's about 80% lean. 3/4 of a pound or 350 grams of ground pork. Also ideally around that 70 to 80% lean marker. Give your meat a nice massage. And mix together thoroughly. Maybe get a bigger bowl so you have actual room. Always with the wrong bowls and losing the lids to the pots with me. Papa, very sorry.
That happens. Actually, Joshua mentioning this, it kind of reminds me of us watching Jack's Bison Burger, because he was mixing it in such a teeny little bowl, like ridiculously small. He couldn't even get his hands in the bowl to mix it.
Knead that together until it starts to get a little tacky and sticky. Then add 1 finely diced or grated sweet onion, 3 cloves of garlic minced, 2 teaspoons or 4 grams of ground white pepper, half a teaspoon or 1 gram of fresh grated nutmeg, a quarter teaspoon of ground allspice, half a cup or 55 grams of panko breadcrumbs. Begin mixing that all together, and once it's roughly combined, add 1 whole egg, mix that together, and finally a quarter cup or 60 mils of whole milk. Mix that thoroughly to combine evenly.
Now it's our turn to make the meatballs. I'm going to be adding all the meat as Joshua did, putting the onions, the garlic, and all the other spices in as well. And if you are adding the egg, it is a good idea that you add it into another container first, just in case if you get any like little eggshells or anything. That's a good idea. Now, if you don't have panko breadcrumbs, you can actually use bread if need be, because what Joshua is doing here is the same method of using a panade, which is bread and milk that is mashed together. What it does is it not only helps to keep the meat together after you cook it, but it also helps to keep it more moist. If you add too much, it'll taste more like bread. If you don't add enough, the meat will have a bit of a different texture to it as well.
Line a rim baking sheet with foil, spray the foil with non-stick cooking spray, then form the meat into 24 evenly sized balls, placing them in rows of 4. I'd recommend using a medium cookie scoop to get your balls as even as possible. Then toss those in an oven set to 425 Fahrenheit, ideally on a convection setting for 15 to 20 minutes or until beautifully browned and cooked through to an internal temp of 165 Fahrenheit. I mean, just look at my balls.
If you have a convection oven, this will cook a lot quicker. Without it, you're going to have to cook these for a longer period of time. And one thing about using the oven tray, you don't have to use foil. You can actually use parchment paper instead, wax paper, butcher's paper, whatever you may call it. But if you use this, you won't have to spray.
Okay, but while those meatballs are still in the oven, what in tarnation are you doing? Twiddling your thumbs? Thinking about how Vikram is mad cute? Instead of all that, I'd recommend making the gravy during this time. In a medium saucepan, add 3 tablespoons or 42 grams of unsalted butter, heat that over medium-high heat until melted, and add 3 tablespoons or 28 grams of all-purpose flour. Whisk that together and let that cook, stirring occasionally for about 1 to 2 minutes or until it begins to turn a little darker. Then add 2 cups or 480 milliliters of hot beef broth. Please make sure this is the good quality beef broth, okay? Like the homemade stuff. The better the broth, the better the gravy. If it's crap, the gravy will be crap. See what I'm saying?
So first, Joshua is making a roux. Now, when making a roux, it's important that you always add a little more butter than flour. Always. That way you won't get any lumps. Today, since we don't have any beef stock, I'm going to be substituting some homemade chicken stock, which you can also use, especially if it's homemade, it's better.
Follow that up with 2 tablespoons or 30 milliliters of double fermented soy sauce. Then just bring that to a light simmer and reduce for 5 minutes or until thickened.
Double fermented soy sauce is, as the name implies, fermented twice. It's not always available. It depends on where you shop. Today I'm going to be using some darkened soy sauce, which is not the exact same thing, but it is a sub if you have to substitute.
Then add half a cup or 120 milliliters of heavy whipping cream and simmer for 2 more minutes, stirring occasionally. And that gravy right there is a true beauty in the world of sauces. You can also add a teaspoon or 3 grams of Dijon mustard for a little extra to the sauce.
We're also going to be adding a little bit of cream, and we're not going to be adding any mustard to this.
Okay, assembly time. Get yourself a nice plate. Offset on one side of the plate, add a nice big mound of mashed potato, then using the back of a large spoon, give it a nice swipe to get a little swoosh. Getting a little fancy here with our titers. Then add 4 to 8 meatballs per plate. I put 7 here because, well, unfortunately it looked better for the video, but if I'm being honest here. Add on your broccoli, followed by a lovely quenelle of your cranberry jam to absolutely exhibit its stellar consistency. And finally, sauce your balls generously with your gravy. I mean, really just coat them nicely, all right? As much or as little as you like, but put a lot. Then just finish that with some finely chopped fresh Italian parsley and fresh cracked black pepper. As usual, we slang the visuals in comparison, but do our meaty balls and unctuous gravy compete with a furniture store?
Now we're going to do the same as Joshua by plating these, a little similar as well.
Just by looking at the quenelle of this jam, it's almost like this is like before and after. Before, after. Let's start with the jam. I mean, instantaneously better. It's balanced, it's got acidity. You see what I'm saying? Potato. They're better, thank you for coming, by a lot. This is like paper, just plain bleached paper. And then this is like Leonardo da Vinci's paintings.
That sounds a little God complexy. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm just saying this is egregiously better. It's not even fair.
Yeah, it does sound a little like that.
All right, guys, and that is it. So we made the Ikea Swedish meatballs, and they came out perfectly. I mean, beyond perfectly. Everything just made sense and actually tasted real. I feel like there was a point where the meatballs at Ikea were really good. Please, no jokes. I already know where you're going with that. The point is we made them significantly better. All the accoutrement on the side, all the different sides, the mashed potatoes, everything. You can do that at home very easily, and I'm happy to supply that to you. So with all that said, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. If this fly keeps flying in my face, he's dead. He's dead. Dead. Sorry you had to see that. Goodbye.
Now it's taste test time. Cranberries. With the cranberries, we didn't have fresh or frozen cranberries. We had to use dried. And we also didn't add as much sugar as Joshua added in the ratio. And even the amount that we added is still, for me, a little on the sweeter side. It's not that acidic. You need a taste. I mean, homemade mashed potatoes are always going to be better than the, store-bought mashed potatoes that are already pre-made. The meatballs. Overall, the meatballs are good, but for me, they're a little too heavy on the spices. A little too much white pepper and allspice. So when you bite it, you have just the flavor of like white pepper in your mouth, and I'm not a big fan of white pepper. When you're making this, take a portion of it, cook it, and then taste it just to make sure that the ratios of the salt and everything else, all the other spices, is right. Because if it's not, after you cook it, it's a little hard to fix. The gravy is okay, it's not my first choice. In any case, guys, I hope you did enjoy this video and this recipe as well. Joshua did do a very good job, although personally I would tweak a few things, especially the spices. Let me know if you've made this recipe down below and your thoughts as well, or any other recipes that you would like us to review and to test as well. Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, as it helps the channel out greatly. Be sure to check out this next video coming up here next, and I will see you guys again very soon. Take care.